up, Judah Hooter? How you doing, man?
Judah Hooter? Did you just call me
I
Judah Hooter?
listen,
I got called I
all
got
right.
called Judy Hooter one time in high school on the announcements. Never
And
lived
never
it
lived
down.
it down.
Never lived it down.
Listen,
Yeah.
just
So
an aside for our guests here, whether you're returning or you're new, I'm going through a sleep deprivation phase,
mhm.
and my brain's starting to go fuzzy. So if I just screw up some words, or just things just leave my mind, or I zone off into the ethosphere,
Right.
Judy, you're gonna have to smack me to get me back on track. Anyway,
I will give you a virtual smack. Hello, Taz.
ooh,
Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Bayshore. As people are coming in,
love
feel free to tag us and let us know who you are, where you're checking in from. Love it when we have that. It's always kind of funny when there's like those amateurs out there doing Facebook lives and they just kind of sit there and they stare for
that.
like the
Just
first
wait.
minute and a half.
Yeah, yeah.
Just gonna
We'll wait for
wait for
somebody
some
to jump
people
on.
to. That's not what Josh and I do. We're already a day behind in this holiday shortened week. I had a very busy weekend. I got 3 skydives in, and I also got 3 houses under contract and walked a property with a guy that I'm meeting with tonight. I think we're going to write on. So lots of good stuff happening in the lots of good stuff happening in the
You
real
forgot
estate
to
world.
mention the new life insurance that you got on Friday afternoon, right before the sky.
I for the first time ever, I have like 85 skydives, which is nothing in the skydiving community. I have like 85 skydives now, and for the first time ever, I had a landing that was hard enough that I needed to seek self medical attention. But I also I did
Wow.
something stupid, and I had to go home and think about it. But I jumped right back on the horse on Monday morning, and right back at it. So
Welcome to the Build and Grow with Real Estate Show. We're here
yes.
on Tuesday, August 8th. Man,
Did I just see you look
I
down
just
into
said
your
August. I didn't say August.
lower
I
right
did.
hand corner of your
Yeah,
computer
September
to
8th.
check the date? Is that what that was right there?
September 8th, 2020. Welcome to episode number 104. We are jumping in today with crazy pandemic anomalies in the housing
Yes.
market, right? So, what I mean, I don't know about you, but there's this old Asian proverb, right? It goes something like this: "Oh, to be born in interesting times," right? And when I was a kid, I heard this thing, and I thought to myself, you know what? That would be really cool. I thought it was like a proverb, like, "Hey, to be born in interesting times, it's a really cool thing." Yada yada yada. As I got older, I found out it was a warning. It was like,
Yeah.
please don't let me be born in interesting times. Let's keep everything, pretty bland. We're living in some interesting times
We
right
are interested. We are living in interesting times, to be sure. So what we want to talk about is just what we're seeing happening right now in the market because of pandemic and because of kind of coming out of it.
now. Yeah.
And not all markets are created the same, and different markets are rebounding differently. So what do we got, Josh?
All right. So today we're going to talk about housing market anomalies in the pandemic. One anomaly, like I put this in the show description before I pushed it out today. I mean, you think about the changes that we had in our society over the last year, right? In just the last year, if a year ago, if I had told you that there was going to be no college football this fall,
Right.
you'd have told me I was crazy, right? I
Right.
mean, I remember when they shut down all the spring sports championships because it was the week before NCAA wrestling championships, and it broke my heart.
Right.
Hopefully, that doesn't happen this
Not
year.
only that, NASCAR had its lowest ratings on the um, lowest rating since like 1980 or something like that for a race.
Okay.
I follow Formula One because I like when they turn left and right in a race. You know what I mean? I always sarcastically say that NASCAR is just rednecks turning left. So, and one of the most storied teams in Formula One, the Williams team is actually dropping out. They are closing their doors. They are no longer going to be. They have like second to Ferrari. They've got like the second most all-time championships, and they are
Okay.
dropping out. There is all kinds of crazy stuff that
Well,
is happening in the sports world that we just never would have believed.
Judah, when you start talking about racing,
Yeah.
I'm really surprised. I mean, you got to make sure that you stay out of the rain because your nose really goes up in the air. You could drown yourself. Oh man, the Formula One, it's so great. Whatever.
It is objectively better.
All right. So let's jump in here. The first anomaly that this isn't something that's never happened before, but it kind of happened overnight. We've had slowly progressing and increasingly progressing housing prices for a while, and we were just talking about this. So every Monday, typically every Monday, we have a meeting for hard money bankers talking about just different things about the market, different things about what we're doing, what the outlook of the week. One of the things we were talking about today is how interesting, in some recent conversations that we've all had with different lenders, retail lenders, I've been saying, we've been really having a lot of problems with the appraisals coming in and not appraising for the sales price of the property.
Correct.
And so, I wanted to kind of bring that out because this happened. It typically will happen in areas where you have fast growth. A lot of times in urban markets where you have neighborhoods that are transitioning, you get an investor that's buying really low, rehabbing really well, putting them on the market. And like before there's a ton of comps there, the properties don't appraise. Well, now it's kind of a different situation, right? I mean, we've been talking about all of the changes in the market and like every month since things have opened up. I feel like we have like this new surprising high.
Right.
So, we got low inventory. The national inventory, it's down 36.4% for August year over year. That's insane. Like a third of inventory just disappeared. What's up, Steve? How you doing, man?
So Steve wants to say our actual appraisal is going away. I heard banks are going to use an algorithm to determine price. See, I don't think that that's going to happen because of CFPB and the federal banking regulations, and the fact that the federal government is the ultimate underlying purchaser and securitizer of a lot of these mortgages. I do not think that that's going to happen. For the first time ever after the fallout, the federal government said you have to qualify income. We don't care how you qualify income. We don't care how you verify income, but we don't care what ratio you use, but you have to make sure that you can justify that somebody income-wise can qualify for these mortgages. Now, that was the first time that the federal government got involved in actually setting underwriting guidelines.
Yeah.
They set, anti-discrimination guidelines before. They had anti-fraud guidelines before. They had anti-money laundering and redlining and all kinds of stuff like that. But they actually got involved in underwriting. And I do not believe that the federal government is going to allow appraisals to be done away. I just don't see that happening.
It's already happening in commercial loans.
Oh, it's commercial, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I get it.
I 100% agree with you. I'm talking, and partly that's because, if you have a 5-unit building or a 6-unit building, it's technically commercial, and those appraisals cost $5,000 and take 5 or 6 weeks to get done.
Well,
and
they're fast.
If they're fast, they take 5 or 6 weeks to get done.
Yeah.
So banks have had to realize, you know what? I'm the one lending the money here. I can figure out based on what's happening here, what's really going on. And banks have brought people internally to do that. So I agree with you.
Right. So, I mean, look, whether this is going to be an algorithm thing or a personal thing, right now in the market, especially in some markets, I mean, I see it around me. There's no inventory, right? We've got this huge drop in inventory. You have areas where there's always 1 or 2 houses on the market. Now there's nothing.
Right.
And so you have buyers who are coming in at these ultra low interest rates. Steve just said, he saw a 2.87
for a 30-year fixed. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Jeez. I saw 2.96, whatever the case is. It's just a few dollars per 100,000, or per thousand that you actually are spending every month in your monthly payment. So a lot of times, they're coming from let's say a 4 or 5% mortgage rate going into a 3% mortgage rate. Even if they're overpaying for the house, their payment goes down or stays the same for a bigger property. What the heck do they care?
Right.
you've got rising prices just in general. In the last year, the median home price jumped 10.1%. That's a humongous jump in 1 year. I mean, if you live in Australia until recently, you would expect those kind of increases. We don't live there. I don't know if you follow Australian real estate, but for like the last 20 years, they've had 10% appreciation per year in the market, which is nuts.
Right.
Now they're having a huge crash. But the effects here are you have appraisal, you have like Judah selling his house. I go in, I see 5 people behind me, and his agent says, "Listen, your house is nice, Judah. The last house sold for 150,000. Let's put yours on for 160." So I walk in and I say 160. Okay, that's a fair price. And then my agent says, "You're not getting this thing at 160. By the time we're done here, if you offer 160, there's going to be 5 people behind you on offers. Let's offer 175 for this place."
Yeah, there's a lot of it's a lot of my realtor friends, and yes, I do have some of those. Are complaining that they're making all cash offers $20,000 over, or financed, but 15 to $20,000, 15 to 20% above list price, and they're not getting the deal, and it's because the cost of finance is so low and just because of what's happening. And then what happens is banks are having a hard time doing the funding and making that happen to justify those loan amounts. And so
Well,
cash becomes even more king in a market like this.
but you end up getting back ended, and it ends up ultimately screwing the consumer. It looks like such a great deal because it's low money down, finance for 30 years, low interest rate, all that kind of stuff. But then you find out, oh, we got to put PMI in there. Even though that $200,000 house you're buying, you had 40,000 to put down in closing costs. Well, the place just appraised for 180.
Right.
Now you got to now you're putting 10% down, or 12% down, whatever. This is a good, I want to jump on this here with Taz. Should I be pivoting away from wholesaling right now? So what do you think about that, Judah? Like,
Well, I mean, I think that this answers a big part of the question. Is, he says that his calls have gone down specifically. Sure, it's harder in a good market like this to do a deal, but it does. So you might need to get creative. You might need to knock on doors. You might need to work with realtors. You might need to do all kinds of things. But there are still real estate deals being done and being had out there, and
yeah.
you just need to get aggressive in how to make them happen.
Well, and just because somebody says no today doesn't mean that's a no. It just means that, hey, they think they have better other opportunities at this point. And the truth is, that's the case. I mean,
Right.
I made an offer on the house for my in-laws that was off market the couple weeks ago. Offered 150,000 on a $210,000 property with 50,000 in renovations needed. So it was essentially a retail offer on
Right.
an improvement house. The guy said it's not enough.
Well, here's what you need to understand about wholesaling, Josh. And I'm sorry, this is
Yeah,
a slight pivot away from what you're talking about there, but wholesalers do two things. They out hustle and outwork the competition,
yeah,
and they get creative in finding deals where others couldn't, right? So if I'm a flipper, right, I want to use Josh as my hard money banker, and I want to buy, fix up, and sell properties. Well, I use wholesalers to find deals for me, right?
yep.
Well, a lot of flippers have realized, oh, it's pretty easy to send out some cards. It's pretty easy to have a VA do some things for me. It's pretty easy to do this, and this in order to find deals. Well, so what you have to do, what wholesalers were doing 15 years ago, 10 years ago to find motivated sellers, flippers can do right now themselves. So if you want to service the flipper community, you have to be willing to do what the flipper community is not willing to do. That's
And
what you as a wholesaler are. Don't think of yourself as a wholesaler. Think of yourself as somebody who is more creative than the flipper. somebody who's willing to do what the flippers aren't willing to do. Are you willing to knock on 100 doors in a week?
Yeah.
Are you willing to spend a Saturday and hang up 200 door hangers in neighborhoods looking for those good deals? You've got to be willing to do what others aren't, so that you can provide deals to the wholesale, to the flipper community. If you can't find, by the way, I know a couple secrets, and if you're a wholesaler, you should reach out to me. Josh put my number up here, because I've got a couple secrets to get wholesale deals sold record fast and
Right.
above what you're asking for, and create a bidding war. I have the best buyers list out there. A lot of wholesalers don't take action because they don't have a buyers list, and like, what am I going to do with this? And you're exactly right. You can run into some serious problems. A good friend of mine, Chris, was struggling to sell a wholesale. I did one little thing for him, and we were able to get literal buyers lining up to make him offers on his property. Give me a call, and we can talk about it. And it's something that most wholesalers don't do. Most wholesalers don't know how to do. If you want to be a wholesaler in this market, you've got to be more creative than the other guy and work harder than the other guy. Don't say, oh, it's hard to find a deal. Good. It's good that it's hard to find a deal. If it was easy to find a deal, then somebody else would have already found it. When you hear that it's hard to be a wholesaler right now, you should go to bed and lay your head on the pillow and say, thank you, Jesus, for making me alive in a time when it's hard to find a deal, because that means the deals I find are that much more valuable to the people out there looking to flip.
Plus it means plus it means that in 6 months or a year, there's going to be a lot less newbies hanging on there that know
Right.
nothing about wholesaling, that just figure, I'll send out a postcard and try to bid up these prices. I'll pay $2,000 more than the last guy and get this thing under contract. We want to get rid of those guys.
Right.
We
And
want to
it's
get
not here's the other thing that I don't think anybody understands or appreciates. The fortune is in the follow-up.
Yeah.
The fortune is in the follow-up. So a lot of people think that their phone is going to ring and they're going to talk to somebody and they're going to be able to, and they're going to say, come out and get my $100,000 house under contract for $30,000, please.
Yeah.
No, it takes work. You've got to go out and you've got to tell that person why you can only pay $50,000 for their house. And then they've got to laugh you off and you've got to leave, and then you've got to follow up with them every week for a month, every month for 6 months or more frequently, and figure out. And I can't tell you this. You've got to figure this out through experimentation. Do I text them every day? Do I email them every month? Do I text them, then email them, then call them, in back-to-back weeks? What should my follow-up sequence be? But if you're not following up and you're not trying to wring that rag for every drop of juice that's in there, forget it. Right now, the fortune is in the follow-up.
And it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder. It is harder than it was a couple years ago when fewer people were in the market. Less people thought it was easy to flip properties, and property values weren't through the roof. But that's okay. You just
Yes,
restart.
Steve, you're exactly right. I have a love-hate relationship with wholesalers. And when it's easy to find deals, there's a whole lot of easy wholesalers that come into the marketplace. And right now, it's harder to find a deal. And all I hear all day long is belly aching from wholesalers about how hard of a time they have finding deals. But I never hear them talking about the creative things they're doing to find more deals, or talking about new creative ways of finding deals, or how hard they're willing to work to make deals happen.
Bottom line is, quit your belly aching. Get out there and find more deals.
Go make it happen.
Number 2, our second anomaly. We don't have a ton more, but our second anomaly is mortgage foreclosures are back, but there's no auctions.
Right.
I mean, it makes me laugh, right? Like September 1st, we're back at it. You can foreclose on banks can now foreclose on the property. They can go through the entire process. But guess what? Even if they take it to the end, they can't take back their collateral.
Right.
With the foreclosure, it's just the legal proceedings. to be able to collect that collateral for a defaulted loan. It's good
Right.
stuff. You know, I mean, it's an important part of a loan. We don't like doing them. We don't do them very often, but when we have to, you know, we've got collateral there so that we're not losing our investment. Well, part of this eviction moratorium from May was, hey, no foreclosures. Well, guess what? They're back. Um, you know, at this point, there we go. Steve, actually, really great point. This is a big opportunity. If you are if you're looking at foreclosures and you've got stuff with equity in them that people couldn't sell because they're too beat up or they're too stubborn, well, now, you know, you can go back to them and say, hey, look, the next step here is the auction. Any equity you have in this place is going to be up in smoke if you don't sell your property. And I'm here to save the day. I can close quickly. The auction scheduled for next week or whenever it is. You know, these things are in place. Um, I thought that was a pretty crazy situation.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is a really crazy situation. It's called a deficiency judgment as well. So maybe you can't pay them something where they walk away with money, but if somebody owes $100,000 on a property and it sells at auction at $80,000, that is a deficient. They would get filed with a deficiency judgment of $20,000, which means that they are going to.
well, that's not nearly as common now as it had been in the past. But
I
yeah, but
yes,
it should be part of the conversation.
I believe that it is something that we are going to see again. Typically, along with the foreclosure comes a bankruptcy, and that gets rid of the deficiency judgment. But the banks are still very much willing to file a deficiency judgment. I think that we're also going to see a lot more deficiency judgments because low interest rates, do you know what they mean? Very tight margins for banks. And I
Yeah,
think they're going to be looking to do anything and everything that they can. And I also think that so even if you go to somebody and say, hey, listen, you know, foreclosure was filed, but if we don't go through the foreclosure, you will be able to get a subprime loan. And they're still out there, by the way. You'll have an easier time getting a an FHA creative lender to get you done if we don't actually go through the foreclosure in 2 or 3 years. So let me just pay you $100,000. That's roughly what the balance is, and let's get this, taken care of and walk away.
yeah, that's exactly right. All right. Last but not least, this is crazy. It makes a lot of sense, but larger, especially higher end uh, properties in urban markets that a year ago were in super high demand, were at their all time highs. They're sitting vacant,
Right.
you know, and
I
with
think we're seeing a lot of. I think that what we're going to see is a lot of people moving out of, and we're continuing to see people move out of these big urban areas, right?
yeah,
So what happened? I was talking to. I'm working with a guy right now on something on my enterprise side on the property management business. And he's like, Judah Hoover, you must be a Mennonite from Lancaster County. I said, well, yeah, how'd you know?
yeah,
And but he's from here. His last name's like Brubaker or Burkholder or something like that. And he lives in the Chicago area now. And there's a lot of people who have left these small places all throughout the US to go to a big city. Now they've been furloughed and they're working from home. So they're working out of Peoria again. They're working out of these small markets. They go back to Texas and Oklahoma and central Pennsylvania and all these places. And they're working from home for 2 to 3 to 5 months. And they realize, geez, I didn't realize because I was living in LA for the last 10 years just how much it costs. My goodness, I can get a martini for under $15 at the bar here at my hometown. You know what I mean? I can get a pizza for under, $30. This
well,
is great. I want to
you
I want to live home again. And so people are they're not necessarily people like a bunch of New Yorkers are moving into central PA, but a lot of people are coming back to central PA. And also, a lot of people from central PA aren't going to be moving to New York. You know what
yeah,
I mean? They're not, when they graduate high school, when they graduate college, they're not going to be chasing jobs in New York. There's a lot of people who just the allure of living in New York is not nearly as big as what it was, and we can see that by the vacancy numbers. Right now, there are 13,000 vacant apartments in Manhattan.
Well, so just an aside, even if the cost was the same, the ease of living is significantly different. I
Right,
mean, like I used to joke getting off the turnpike coming back from Philadelphia, come to see my parents. It was like going on vacation because like you get off the turnpike and all of a sudden there's just farmland and open areas and all this stuff. But to get anywhere in any metropolitan area, you're talking 30 minutes to an hour just to go down the street to grab a bite to eat and come back.
right, right,
Whereas around here, you're going 30 minutes, that's 30 miles.
right.
You know what I mean? It's a big difference. So you got that. We got huge vacancies in New York. I mean, areas like San Francisco. I mean, I thought San Francisco was pretty staggering. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world, but their vacancy rates went from 2 to 3%. Now they're at 6%. They're projecting 8% before the end of the year. And you're talking about negative growth rates in value at the highest values of all time in the hottest real estate market of all time. I mean, that's a big one.
Yeah, I love what Bayshore says here is, Denver traffic is awful. I for some reason I know a lot of people who live in or have lived in Denver over the past decade, and everyone talks about just how awful the Denver traffic is. But also, don't miss this stat. This stat was amazing to me because it is just not at all my reality right now. The average
Yeah.
unit in Manhattan, they're giving away 1.7 months free to fill. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
I'm filling units right now with no concessions in a week to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think that after Thanksgiving, that's probably going to go more to like 3 or 4 weeks, but it's certainly not months.
Well, dude,
It's absolutely crazy.
coincidentally, last weekend I'm looking at an apartment for rent in Manhattan, right on Park Avenue. 64,000 a month. I think there might be something to to throwing in an extra $130,000 for your rental rate. When you get to be in numbers like that, it just gets stupid.
That's ridiculous. Right. And so that's the average. So
Yeah.
there's a ton of people out there offering 2 or 3 or 4. There's a ton of people offering 0. The average is 1.7 months
Right.
of rent concessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's pretty
ridiculous.
wild. Pretty wild. So I mean, like, there's some crazy things happening in the world. What can we
Yeah,
say?
what are you guys seeing? Let us know in the comments. Reach out to us after the show. We want to know what problems you're facing, what problems you're experiencing. And listen, I don't mean to beat up on wholesalers, but I want wholesalers to understand, so bring us those problems and say, hey, I'm struggling with X.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a different frame of mind you need. So if you're a wholesaler, that's one of the problems that we tackled today. What you've got to shift in your mind is it's good that it's hard. That means it's hard for everybody else. And my job isn't to find deals. My job is to be more creative than everybody else at finding deals. My job is to work harder than everybody else at finding deals. My job is to be more creative at selling my deals once I have them under contract, and work harder than everybody else at selling my deals once I have them under contract. Those are my 4 jobs. Work harder to find, be more creative to find. Work harder to sell, be more creative to sell. That's what I need to do. So whatever other problem you might be having in real estate right now, let's talk about it. One of the other things that we talked about is people are struggling to find contractors.
Yep.
We're struggling to find contractors. We talked about this on the show. Great. Show up at Home Depot at 6:30. Be in the Home Depot parking lot while it's still dark outside, or Lowe's. Neither one of us have offered to sponsor the show yet, so we have to mention both of them. But Lowe's and or Home Depot, you will have exclusivity for this small price of a nice big check. So show up in the parking lot while it's still dark out and see what trucks are there, and get their names and telephone numbers and go from there. You've got to be creative in how you're going to network in today's day and age when there by and large is not a bunch of real estate investor meetings going on.
That's right. That's right. Beautiful. All right. We'd love to see what other anomalies you guys are seeing in the market. And, that's really it. That's all we got for today. Taz, Jeremy, Scott, Bayshore, and Brandon, thanks for the love. If you guys enjoyed what you saw today, don't forget to like and share. And we'll see you here back again tomorrow at noon.
See everybody.
Take care.